You know what's terrifying? 4 in 10 adults say online dating has made finding a partner either much easier or much harder. There's no middle ground anymore. That's because in 2025, these red flags aren't just showing up on dates anymore. Social media amplifies hidden behaviors, making toxic patterns harder to spot behind carefully curated profiles and strategic posts. Most people underestimate how social media can mask relationship warning signs. This video will help you spot them. The scary part is how normal these behaviors have become, disguised as modern dating culture when they're actually psychological manipulation tactics dressed up in digital packaging. The algorithm optimizer. Picture this, you're scrolling through their Instagram and every single photo looks like it came straight from a magazine shoot. The lighting is perfect, the angles are flawless, and somehow they never have a bad hair day. Their bio reads like a personal mission statement, complete with inspirational quotes and carefully selected emojis. You think you've hit the jackpot, but what you're actually looking at is someone who treats dating like running an influencer campaign. Every post, every message is a calculated move. These people have turned self-presentation into a full-time job. They spend hours crafting the perfect response to your text messages, analyzing which filter makes them look most approachable, and timing their posts for maximum engagement. Their dating profiles get updated more frequently than most people change their bedsheets. Every photo tells a story they want you to believe about their lifestyle, success, and desirability. But here's the problem. None of it reflects who they actually are when the camera isn't rolling. Watch how they interact with social media and you'll see the manipulation tactics they've learned from influencer culture. They post mysterious quotes after arguments, hoping you'll think they're deep and philosophical. They strategically like photos of attractive people to make you jealous, then act confused when you bring it up. Every story they share, every comment they make, every reaction they give feels calculated to produce a specific response. They've studied the psychology of social media engagement, and they're using those same tactics on you. Their conversations follow patterns that feel strangely familiar because they are. They rotate through the same charming anecdotes, the same vulnerable moments, and the same witty observations with multiple people. You'll think you're having a unique connection until you realize they told the exact same story about their childhood pet to 3 other matches this week. They've turned human interaction into content creation, recycling their personality across different audiences like a stand-up comedian working the same material at different clubs. The truly disturbing part isn't the deception itself, it's that they've become so invested in maintaining their digital persona that they've lost touch with their authentic self. Ask them what they actually enjoy doing when nobody's watching, and you'll see panic in their eyes. They've been performing for so long that they genuinely don't know where the act ends and the real person begins. Their identity has become completely dependent on external validation and curated presentation. Research reveals the psychological cost of this digital obsession. A 2019 BYU study found that high social media use correlates with lower relationship satisfaction, illustrating how overcuration backfires on genuine connection. Nearly half of younger adults say social media is important to showing care, which can encourage these inauthentic displays. They're not just being selective about their best angles, they're revealing a fundamental inability to be comfortable with their unfiltered reality. This obsession with image control extends far beyond dating apps into every aspect of how they relate to others. When you're involved with an algorithm optimizer, you're not dating a person. You're dating a carefully constructed advertisement designed to sell you on an idea of who they are. Every date feels like a photo shoot opportunity. Every conversation gets measured against how it might play on social media. They're constantly checking how their relationship looks from the outside, rather than focusing on how it feels from the inside. Your actual compatibility becomes secondary to whether you enhance their online brand. The moment you try to connect with something real beneath the surface, they panic. They've invested so much energy in crafting their perfect image that genuine vulnerability feels terrifying. They can't handle conversations that don't fit their scripted narrative. Ask them about their fears, their failures, or their genuine dreams, and watch them deflect back to surface-level topics they can control. They've forgotten how to be spontaneous because spontaneity doesn't photograph well. This behavior stems from profound insecurity masked by digital confidence. Research links excessive social media monitoring with increased jealousy and anxiety, creating a cycle where they need constant external validation because they have no internal sense of self-worth. The endless posting, liking, and curating isn't confidence, it's desperation disguised as social media savvy. They're addicted to the dopamine hit of online engagement because real-world connection requires vulnerability they're not prepared to offer. The relationship foundation becomes completely unstable because it's built on false premises. You fell for their highlight reel, not their reality. They fell for the idea of being admired rather than truly known. when real life inevitably fails to match their curated presentation, both parties feel disappointed and confused. The person you thought you were dating never actually existed, and the person they thought they were presenting was unsustainable. What makes this particularly dangerous in 2025 is how normalized this behavior has become. Everyone expects some level of digital presentation, so it's easy to miss when someone crosses the line from putting their best foot forward to completely fabricating their personality. We've all learned to present ourselves attractively online, but algorithm optimizers have turned this into psychological manipulation. They often have backup plans and backup relationships running simultaneously, treating their dating life like a social media campaign with multiple target audiences. They're not looking for one person to connect with, they're looking for multiple sources of validation to feed their need for constant attention. You become part of their content strategy rather than their actual life. The red flags become obvious once you know what to look for. Their stories never quite add up because they're telling different versions to different people. Their emotional responses feel rehearsed because they've practiced them in the mirror. Their social media activity becomes more important to them than your actual relationship. They care more about how things appear than how they actually feel. Here's what's particularly manipulative about this pattern. They make you feel special for seeing behind their perfect image, when actually they're showing the same vulnerable moments to everyone. They've figured out that sharing calculated imperfections makes people feel closer to them, so they strategically reveal weaknesses that are actually designed to manipulate your empathy. The ultimate tragedy of dating an algorithm optimizer is that there might be a real person underneath all the digital performance, but they've buried that person so deep under layers of manufactured personality that neither of you can find them. They've become addicted to being loved for who they pretend to be rather than risking rejection for who they actually are. Recognizing when someone's online persona feels too polished reveals they're more invested in appearing lovable than actually being capable of love. Real people have bad days, unflattering angles, and moments when they're not on. If someone's presentation feels consistently perfect, they're telling you they prioritize image over authenticity. And if they can't be real with themselves, they definitely can't be real with you. But sometimes the opposite problem emerges when someone mistakes oversharing for authenticity. The trauma dumper. You're on your first coffee date, and within 20 minutes they've shared their entire family history, complete with detailed accounts of childhood neglect, toxic ex-relationships, and their current therapy sessions. You think you're connecting on a deep level because they're being so open with you. Wrong. What you're experiencing is emotional vomiting disguised as vulnerability, and you've just been assigned the role of unpaid therapist without your consent. These people have confused emotional intensity with genuine intimacy. They believe that sharing their darkest moments creates instant bonding, but what they're actually doing is creating an exhausting dynamic where every interaction revolves around managing their psychological state. They unload decades of unprocessed trauma onto you before you've even decided if you want a second date. Their life story becomes your responsibility to carry, understand, and somehow fix through your presence and attention. Watch how every conversation with them eventually circles back to their damage. You could be talking about your favorite movies, and somehow they'll steer it toward how their ex used to criticize their taste in entertainment. Mention your job stress, and they'll immediately launch into a 40-minute monologue about their anxiety disorder and how work triggers their abandonment issues. Your experiences become launching pads for their emotional performances rather than opportunities for mutual sharing and connection. They haven't learned the crucial difference between vulnerability and emotional dumping. Genuine vulnerability builds bridges between people through carefully timed reciprocal sharing that considers the other person's emotional capacity. Trauma dumping is a one-way flood of unprocessed pain that overwhelms the listener and creates codependent patterns. Real intimacy develops gradually as trust builds. Trauma dumpers skip all the foundational work and jump straight to the deepest waters, expecting you to dive in and save them. The truly manipulative part is how skilled they are at making you feel special for handling their emotional chaos. They'll look at you with tears in their eyes and say things like, "I've never felt safe enough to tell anyone this before," or "You're the first person who really understands me." These statements are designed to make you feel chosen and important, creating a sense of responsibility for their well-being. You start believing that your understanding and patience are uniquely healing for them, when really they're just desperate for anyone willing to carry their emotional baggage. Modern dating culture has made this behavior harder to recognize because we've normalized oversharing as authenticity. Social media has taught us to mistake public emotional display for genuine openness, and dating apps encourage us to share personal details quickly to create connection. But there's a massive difference between being authentically open and using someone as your emotional dumping ground. Surveys show many daters find early emotional intensity a trust breaker rather than a connection builder. They follow up their trauma dumps with strategic statements designed to increase your emotional investment. After sharing something particularly heavy, they'll add, "I can't believe I'm telling you this. I've never opened up to anyone like this before." Later, you'll discover through mutual friends or social media that they've told this exact same story to multiple people. The special moment you thought you shared was actually part of their standard dating script, designed to create false intimacy and emotional obligation. The relationship dynamic becomes entirely focused on managing their emotional state while your needs disappear into the background. You find yourself constantly checking in on their mental health, monitoring their moods, and adjusting your behavior to prevent triggering their trauma responses. Your own stress, achievements, concerns, and dreams become secondary to maintaining their emotional stability. This creates relationships built on codependency rather than genuine compatibility and mutual support. Their trauma becomes a shield against any criticism or accountability. Bring up a legitimate concern about their behavior, and they'll respond with, "I'm sorry, I know I'm damaged," or launch into another story about their past that explains why they acted that way. They've learned to weaponize their pain to avoid taking responsibility for how their actions affect others. Their history becomes an excuse for present behavior rather than motivation for growth and change. They often test your capacity to handle their emotional chaos as a way of determining your worthiness as a partner. They'll share increasingly intense stories to see if you'll stick around, treating your emotional endurance like a compatibility test. This isn't about trust or connection. It's about finding someone with enough empathy and poor boundaries to absorb their unprocessed trauma without complaint or expectation of reciprocity. The manipulation extends to how they frame these emotional dumps. They present their oversharing as evidence of how much they trust you, when actually it reveals how little they respect your emotional boundaries. They assume you want to hear their entire psychological history without checking if you have the capacity or desire to process such heavy information. They mistake your politeness and empathy for enthusiasm about becoming their emotional caretaker. What makes this particularly dangerous is how it mimics the vulnerability that healthy relationships require. Everyone knows relationships need openness and emotional sharing, so it feels wrong to complain when someone is being honest about their struggles. But healthy emotional sharing is reciprocal, appropriately timed, and considers the other person's emotional capacity. Trauma dumping is self-focused emotional regulation through another person's absorption of your pain. The relationship becomes impossible to develop naturally because it starts from an artificially intense emotional place. You're dealing with their deepest wounds before you know their favorite foods or what makes them laugh. The foundation becomes managing crisis rather than building compatibility. You never get to experience the normal progression of getting to know someone because you're immediately thrust into the role of emotional support system. They often have histories of relationships that ended with the other person feeling overwhelmed or unable to handle their intensity. They frame these endings as evidence that their exes weren't emotionally mature enough for real love, when actually their exes recognized that trauma dumping isn't intimacy. They're looking for someone who will mistake emotional exhaustion for deep connection and stay trapped in the caretaker role indefinitely. Genuine vulnerability is reciprocal and timed appropriately. It builds connection through mutual sharing that respects both people's emotional boundaries and capacity. Trauma dumping is emotional manipulation disguised as openness, designed to create obligation and codependency rather than authentic intimacy. The difference lies in whether the sharing serves connection or exploitation, whether it builds bridges or creates burdens. But sometimes the invasion of privacy happens more quietly, through digital channels you might not even notice at first. The digital stalker, you mention going to a new restaurant, and they casually bring up that photo you posted there 2 years ago. They remember comments you made on your friend's birthday post from last summer. They know your workout schedule better than you do because they've been tracking your gym check-ins. At first, this feels flattering. Someone is paying such close attention to your life that they remember details you've forgotten. But what you're actually experiencing is surveillance disguised as affection. This person has transformed monitoring into a refined skill. They check your location constantly through apps, noting when you arrive somewhere and how long you stay. They monitor your online activity across platforms, keeping mental notes about who you follow, what you like, and which posts you engage with. They screenshot your Instagram stories to analyze them later, looking for clues about your mood, your plans, or potential threats to their relationship with you. They keep detailed tabs on everyone you interact with digitally, creating elaborate mental files about your friends, coworkers, and family members. The obsessive behavior gets packaged as caring and interest. When you point out how invasive their knowledge feels, they act confused and hurt. They frame their surveillance as evidence of how much they care about you, how interested they are in your life, how committed they are to knowing the real you. They make you feel guilty for wanting privacy, suggesting that people in love should share everything and have nothing to hide from each other. Their questions reveal just how deep they've dug into your digital footprint. They'll ask about people who liked your photos, wondering how you know them and what your relationship history is. They bring up old posts you made during difficult times, probing for emotional reactions or testing your honesty about past experiences. When you point out how invasive this behavior is, they flip the script and act wounded that you're accusing them of caring too much. The manipulation becomes clear when you realize they're making you feel unreasonable for wanting basic privacy. They justify their stalking as normal relationship behavior, suggesting that couples should know everything about each other's digital lives. They make you question whether your desire for boundaries is actually evidence that you're hiding something or being unfaithful. This gaslighting technique makes you doubt your own reasonable expectations for privacy and autonomy. The surveillance extends beyond passive observation into active investigation. They create fake social media accounts to monitor your activity when you've blocked them or set your accounts to private. They use these burner accounts to check up on your friends, see who you're talking to, and monitor your interactions when they think you're not watching. They get upset about conversations you have with people they've unilaterally decided are threats to your relationship. The behavior escalates in predictable patterns. What starts as seemingly innocent interest in your social media becomes obsessive monitoring of your every digital move. They start questioning your interactions with others, demanding explanations for likes you receive or comments you make. They want access to your phone, your passwords, and your private messages. The surveillance becomes a form of psychological control that extends far beyond digital spaces. Research reveals concerning patterns about this behavior in modern relationships. According to Pew Research, 34% of partnered adults have looked through their partner's phone without permission, highlighting how normalized digital snooping has become. This isn't casual curiosity, it's systematic violation of privacy that erodes the foundation of trust relationships require. The psychological impact of being constantly monitored is severe. You start self-censoring your online activity, avoiding interactions that might trigger their jealousy or suspicion. You begin posting less, engaging less with friends, and limiting your digital expression to avoid conflict. Your online behavior becomes shaped by their surveillance rather than your authentic interests and relationships. The jealousy focuses on interactions that exist purely in digital spaces. They get upset about emoji usage and comments from friends, interpret friendly conversations as flirtation, and create elaborate narratives about your relationships based on social media interactions. They analyze your response times to messages, comparing how quickly you reply to them versus others. They track your online activity patterns, noting when you're active on social media but haven't responded to their messages. What makes this particularly insidious is how they weaponize the information they gather through stalking. They use details from your digital history to manipulate conversations, bringing up old posts or interactions to prove points or win arguments. They reference your past online behavior during fights, using your own digital footprint against you. They create elaborate timelines of your activities based on their surveillance data. The controlling behavior can extend into real-world monitoring. They show up at places they know you'll be based on your social media posts, or use digital information to track your offline activities. This creates a comprehensive surveillance network that combines online and offline stalking methods, making you feel watched and controlled in every aspect of your life. Their reaction to being called out reveals the true nature of their behavior. Instead of apologizing for overstepping boundaries, they become defensive and accusatory. They suggest that your desire for privacy means you're being unfaithful or deceptive. They turn their stalking into evidence of your untrustworthiness, creating a twisted logic where their violation of your boundaries becomes proof that you deserve to have your boundaries violated. The relationship becomes a prison where your every digital move is monitored and analyzed. You lose the freedom to interact naturally online because everything gets filtered through their surveillance and interpreted through their insecurity. Your social media becomes a minefield where any interaction could trigger their jealousy and accusations. The fundamental issue isn't just the stalking itself. It's how they justify this behavior as normal relationship dynamics while making you feel crazy for wanting basic privacy and autonomy. They've convinced themselves that love requires total transparency and access, when actually healthy relationships are built on trust and respect for boundaries. Someone who needs to monitor your every digital move doesn't trust you, and without trust, you don't have a relationship. You have a surveillance state disguised as romance, where your privacy and autonomy are sacrificed to feed their need for control. But sometimes the control takes a different form entirely, one that's even more cowardly because it avoids confrontation altogether. The ghosting expert. They've mastered the art of vanishing into thin air, treating human connections like streaming subscriptions they can cancel the moment they lose interest. One day you're texting constantly, making plans, sharing inside jokes, and the next day they've evaporated from your life without a trace. No explanation, no goodbye, no acknowledgement that you ever existed. They've turned emotional abandonment into their go-to strategy for handling anything that requires effort, vulnerability, or basic human decency. This person has normalized disappearing as their primary conflict resolution method. The second things get real, complicated, or require any level of emotional investment, they vanish. Planning a serious conversation about where the relationship is headed, gone. Need to discuss something that upset you, disappeared. Want to move past the surface level small talk into actual intimacy, they've left the building. They use ghosting like other people use the snooze button, treating difficult situations as problems that will solve themselves if ignored long enough. The truly infuriating part comes when they reappear weeks or months later with messages that act like nothing happened. Hey stranger, how have you been? Or saw something that reminded me of you, as if they didn't just put you through emotional whiplash by vanishing without explanation. They expect you to welcome them back with open arms, ready to pick up exactly where you left off before they decided you weren't worth a basic goodbye. They show zero acknowledgement of the pain their disappearance caused, treating their absence like a minor inconvenience rather than emotional abandonment. The psychological damage of ghosting extends far beyond hurt feelings or wounded pride. This behavior triggers deep abandonment trauma and leaves you questioning your worth, your reality, and your ability to read people accurately. You replay every conversation, analyzing every interaction, trying to figure out what you did wrong or what signs you missed. The lack of closure creates a mental loop where you can't properly process the end of the connection because there was no actual ending, just a sudden void where a person used to be. They weaponize ghosting as a power move to avoid accountability, difficult conversations, or any situation where they might have to consider someone else's feelings. Rather than having an uncomfortable talk about not being interested, they choose to inflict psychological harm through abandonment. They prioritize their momentary discomfort over your long-term emotional well-being, showing a fundamental inability to see others as deserving basic respect and closure. The ghosting isn't about poor communication skills, it's about viewing other people as disposable. Modern dating apps have made this behavior easier and more socially acceptable than ever before. The abundance of options creates a mindset where potential partners become replaceable entertainment rather than human beings deserving consideration. When someone becomes inconvenient, complicated, or boring, they can simply swipe to the next option without any social consequences. The digital nature of modern dating removes the human element that would make ghosting feel as cruel as it actually is. These people often maintain multiple connections simultaneously, ghosting and returning to different options based on their current mood, availability, or level of boredom. You're not their only target. You're part of a rotation they manage like a playlist, skipping songs when they're not feeling that particular vibe. They keep several people in various stages of communication, disappearing from some while pursuing others, then cycling back when their primary options don't work out. The prevalence of this behavior has reached alarming levels. According to Pew Research, 53% of partnered adults on social media have experienced ghosting, highlighting how normalized this cruel practice has become. This isn't accidental behavior or social awkwardness. It's a deliberate choice that reflects their inability to handle basic human interactions with maturity and respect. The pattern extends beyond romantic relationships into friendships, work connections, and family dynamics. They ghost therapists when sessions get too intense, disappear from friend groups when drama arises, and abandon family members who need support during difficult times. Their entire approach to human connection involves avoiding anything that requires emotional labor, commitment, or the discomfort of honest communication. Watch how they talk about their past relationships and you'll notice a theme. Everyone else was crazy, too needy, or couldn't handle their independence. They never acknowledge their role in relationship failures because ghosting allows them to avoid taking responsibility for their behavior. In their mind, they're not ending relationships badly. They're simply choosing not to participate anymore, as if other people's feelings are optional considerations. The manipulation becomes clear when you realize they use your attachment to control the dynamic. They know that disappearing will make you question yourself, worry about their well-being, and ultimately become more grateful when they return. The intermittent reinforcement of their presence creates an addictive cycle where you become more invested in someone who treats you like a disposable option. Their reappearance strategy reveals calculated emotional manipulation. They return when they're bored, lonely, or when their other options have fallen through. The casual tone of their return messages is designed to test whether you'll accept their behavior without complaint. If you welcome them back easily, you've proven you'll tolerate their abandonment patterns. If you confront them about ghosting, they'll often disappear again, punishing you for having standards. Sometimes they combine ghosting with gaslighting, creating an even more damaging pattern. When someone ghosted you then denies it upon return, it's emotional manipulation backed by repeated Pew findings on online dating dismissal. They claim they never actually ghosted you, suggest you're being too sensitive, or blame you for their decision to vanish. Research shows that 4 in 10 daters feel less trust due to oversharing and ghosting in relationships. The psychological impact on their victims can last for months or years. Being ghosted damages your ability to trust others, creates anxiety about future relationships, and leaves lasting scars on your self-esteem. The uncertainty and lack of closure make it difficult to move forward because you never received proper acknowledgement that the connection ended. The fundamental truth about ghosting experts is that their behavior reveals exactly how they value human connections. Someone who can disappear without explanation will do it repeatedly because they've never learned that other people's feelings matter as much as their own convenience. They lack the emotional maturity to handle adult relationships and the empathy to care about the damage their abandonment causes. But sometimes, instead of disappearing completely, they choose a different form of emotional starvation. The breadcrumber. They've perfected the art of feeding you just enough attention to keep you hungry while never providing a satisfying meal. These people send sporadic late-night texts that make you think they're interested, throw out occasional compliments that give you hope, and make vague plans that somehow never turn into actual dates. They've mastered emotional starvation as a control mechanism, keeping you perpetually waiting for more while delivering the absolute minimum required to prevent you from walking away completely. This person operates like they're running a complex business, managing multiple investments. They maintain several people in rotation, giving each person just enough attention to keep them interested, while never fully committing to anyone.